This is another installment in my Yuuzhan Vong invasion series where the Vong are invading the galaxy at different points in time. This video is about if the Yuuzhan Vong invaded during the early months of the Clone Wars. You read the title and know what the Yuuzhan Vong are, and that's why you clicked it. Need I say more? On to the video. The state of the galaxy in 22 BBY sees a galaxy very divided between Republic loyalists and separatists. Unlike previous conflicts, the beginning of the Clone Wars witnessed many planets having brutal civil wars between themselves, with one example being on Jabeam, which witnessed Republic and Separatist intervention to support their respective factions against one another in a very brutal civil war of trench warfare. This is probably the time in the Clone Wars where the Republic had it the hardest, as many planets were leaving the Republic left and right to join the Separatists. The Clone Army is also present with ARC troopers and commandos. However, the main problem that the Clone Army had at the start of the Clone Wars was the fact that the Jedi were poor military leaders. However, this did create an experienced ARC Trooper Corps that could command their troops despite Jedi incompetence. The Separatists, on the other hand, were doing pretty good for themselves at the start of the Clone Wars, and were on a high as General Grievous began spreading Republic forces very thinly. They also had widespread usage of their droid army and used several hired bounty hunters to act as commanding officers, as well as corporate security officials from companies such as the Trade Federation. Although the Separatists have the numbers, that doesn't necessarily translate to the abilities, as the droid army had a tendency to attack in waves, which caused massive losses. When the Yuuzhan Vong invasion comes, mostly Outer Rim Separatist planets are affected, and the Republic is initially indifferent as they could use an edge in the war that they were currently on the decline in. However, unlike other times when the Vong could invade in the Clone Wars, Palpatine sweats even more nervously as he had just begun his plans to take over the galaxy and initiated the Clone Wars. So, in that sense, the galaxy is in a pretty weak, yet militarized state. From Palpatine's perspective, this was probably the worst time for the Yuuzhan Vong to invade the galaxy. He already knew about the Vong and other threats in the unknown regions, and ordinarily he would allow for the Yuuzhan Vong to gain a strong foothold to begin in the Outer Rim to show the galaxy that they were a big threat, and he was the only one who could stop them. However, his abilities are limited due to how much the Republic and Separatists hate one another at this point in the Clone Wars, and it becomes a three-way war. The course of the war likely sees the Yuuzhan Vong vigorously attack the Separatists because, droid army. Meanwhile, the Republic begins to build up its forces as the Separatists are engaging in a brutal campaign against the Vong, who have no hesitation in any way to kill civilians in the most brutal way possible because, again, droid army. The Separatists will turn their forces away from fighting the Republic to counter the Yuuzhan Vong, and bioweapons such as the defoliator and swamp gas are put into mass production. Although many Republic military planners and higher-ups in politics would want to use the Separatist diversion to the Yuuzhan Vong as an opportunity to launch a renewed offensive against the Separatists, Palpatine would make sure that this didn't happen for several reasons. First, the offensive would cause more losses to the Republic that would be needed to face the Vong. Second, Palpatine is being fed information from Dooku about the Yuuzhan Vong and their invasions, and he knows that the Republic in its current state would eventually lose. Third is normal Republic military intelligence gathered about the Yuuzhan Vong will always be incomplete, as even the Separatists have barely an idea of what they are facing. Therefore, I feel like once Palpatine disseminates information about the Vong to his political and military leaders, the Republic will continue to build up their forces and enhance their chemical weapons projects. Palpatine would also give the GAR plans for the defoliator tank and other bioweapons projects that the Separatists have been working on, claiming that they were acquired by his spies, when in fact they were just him. Palpatine and essentially the entire Republic treats the unspoken ceasefire between the Separatists and the Republic as a buffer between the Yuuzhan Vong and the Republic. Once the Vong defeats the Separatists, the might of the Grand Army of the Republic is to be unleashed. The Jedi are put on the front lines, partially due to their lightsaber combat abilities, but also because Palpatine knows that their Force abilities won't impact the Vong, and that the Jedi will be massacred, which is something that he would always want to see. However, the Clone Army will demolish the Vong with bioweapons which had been successfully tested by the Separatists. Essentially, Palpatine is using the Separatists as his trial and error group. Count Dooku defects to the Republic as orchestrated by Palpatine as a means of giving all information and bioweaponry to the Republic about how to better fight the aliens. Dooku's defection would also see him giving false information that benefits Palpatine, such as a distorted information about the outbound flight and claims that the Jedi as well as the Separatist non-human species provoked the Yuuzhan Vong attack. Victory would come for the Republic, which Palpatine would then transform into his empire, claiming it is to protect the galaxy from other threats and claiming that the Jedi provoked the Vong as did the Separatists. However, Palpatine would ensure that Anakin kills Dooku and turns him to the dark side during the final days of the Clone Wars. He would also task Skywalker with killing what was left of the Separatist Council to ensure that there were no threats to the Emperor's power. At the war's end, purges will be enacted by Emperor Palpatine against those that he claimed either hindered the war effort, provoked the Vong, or are a threat to the Imperial security against the unknown regions. The post-war period also sees a Separatist insurgency occur on planets that are completely destroyed from the Vong occupation and now under Imperial rule. This is just what I think would happen had the Yuuzhan Vong invaded the galaxy during the early Clone Wars era. What do you think would have happened? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.